From this audience that we have here. Premier, let me start, I guess you came into office May 2009. What's been the hardest thing for you? Because I mean, it's a huge economy, fifth largest on the continent, I'm told. So perhaps you've got one of the biggest jobs on the continent.
The major challenge is that of being able to satisfy all the needs and expectations of our people, given our limited resources, given the various areas of responsibility. But what has also been quite exciting about that is that to a large extent, we have remained committed to what the basis that we're being elected on. And not only is this determination identified by us. Independent research has also revealed that, such as the South African Institute of Race Relations, the Quality of Life Survey. But we know there are still many more South Africans who deserve better from us. And I believe that we still are quite committed to turn things around.
What one achievement would you say you are most proud of?
One achievement that I can say we are most proud of is that we've been able to turn around the finances of the province. 2 weeks before the general elections in 2009, the province was almost at the brink of bankruptcy, and we had to come in. And the then Premier Paul Mashatile called us somewhere in Mogale and made a commitment that post-elections everybody must go in and go and save the situation. And we went in with Team Gauteng, and I can say the situation is much better. Okay,
so you've turned the finances around, but what went wrong in the first place? Because after all, it is all an ANC government that was responsible for all of this.
Part of it had nothing to do with political leadership. It had to do with poor management in terms of financial controls. It had to do with overcommitting government even beyond the resources at our disposal, poor contract management, and in some instances dealing with rogue elements who are service providers who would actually demand and put more than what would be expected in terms of payments, and hence the consequential management processes, and hence the introduction of Operation Patala and the payments to the tune of 4.2 billion to the debt, responding to the debt that we had actually inherited from 2007.
But why did it take so long to, I mean, we almost were in the ICU as you were describing. Why does it take so long? Were there no flags along the way to say, look, we've got a problem, let's start fixing it now?
We came knowing, and that's exactly what we did. We had to rearrange all the issues that are related to supply chain. We had to renegotiate some of the contracts. We had to terminate some of the relationships that we had established and reprioritize. And hence, what we have been able to do, to redirect the resources towards education, towards health, and most importantly, to capacitate the departments and make sure that they've got the authority. In fact, I can safely say, dealing with a baggage starting from 2007 up to today, we've really done something that is quite credible. We are now dealing with the issues around leadership, the issues around delegation of authority. We are also moving away from the middlemen, such as your labor brokers, your agencies, and service providers who do not have the capacity but rely on the others. We are also protecting the right policy of broad-based economic empowerment that sometimes has also been exploited at the expense of delivery.
Are you saying there's no role for labor brokers in Gauteng?
I don't believe that there's a role for a labor broker when we need a nurse. And I think that's what has used to be a problem. When Chris Ani Baragwanath is running short of nurses, they would have to go to a nursing agency. That's why we have now reopened the nursing colleges, because it is a demand that the health sector will forever require. I don't believe we need a labor broker or an agency to get a cleaner or a porter for Charlotte Maxeke. I think it is those kind of things that we are now actually doing away with. I do believe that there may be other services that you need outside of government's capacity. But there are basic things that I just can't understand. I don't believe that government can't build its own capacity to deal with security. I don't believe that government can't actually employ women and youth and the unemployed in in Soweto to come and deal with the laundry services of Chris and Baragwanath. Why must we outsource when our own mothers and sisters can wash your shirt much cleaner and on time and make sure that on Monday morning you go to school being clean?
All right, so you've mentioned the health sector. You've mentioned the health sector, and from the tweets and the Facebook messages that I've been getting, that's one area that's a bit of a sore point in Gauteng in particular. And maybe anecdotally, I read a report recently that 17% of the ICU beds are not operating because of budgets and short staff. Is that what are we doing to turn that around? Because that's ICU is a critical area.
Absolutely. What we have found, because the turnaround, you can't find a solution unless you have diagnosed what exactly is the problem. Part of the problem was exactly that the health service was getting bloated with administrative capacity and not professional service. And therefore, precisely because of that shortage, then ICUs will actually then not have patients or even admit patients into their services. What we've been able to do now, we are now working with all our 5 tertiary hospitals directly to now start saying, what is the budget of Krisani Baragwanath? I always say Bara is a village on its own. It needs a chief, it needs the councillors, it needs a mayor. It is such a huge such a huge institution. It can't actually be dependent on an agency in one department and depend on somebody that when a tap is leaking, somebody must come out of somewhere or issue a tender for sorting out the thing. So we are sorting out the capacitation of professional services and making sure that our clinicians, our pharmacists, our nurses are directly employed by government. And these are some of the things that we're already doing as part of the turnaround strategy. It has not been an easy thing because remember, you have to negotiate yourself out of a contract that was there. So there are legal obligations that you also have to deal with. And in that period, there are services that are expected to be delivered. And what we are really quite cautious of is to not sacrifice or compromise frontline service. Hence, primary health care in Gauteng has delivered quite adequate. But the reputation when it comes to tertiary health services has not been good because of some of these issues that I've raised.
All right. Well, one issue that doesn't require budgets is the customer service that people get in these hospitals. I heard a disturbing story of a family that went there, elderly person, queued for 4 hours to get seen by a doctor. And after 4 hours, only to realize that she was in the wrong queue. Nobody came to her to say, what's wrong, can we direct you, that kind of thing.
That's exactly the issues that we agree with the national minister on, the non-negotiables. Just the reduction of queues, the waiting period in the pharmacy, the cleanliness of a hospital, better community relationship with your patients and deal with them as people who really require service and care. And most importantly, making sure that you've got the right capacity and do away with this situation where doctors can actually be in the employ of the public sector whilst they run their own surgeries. Because there's also been an exploitation of that kind of an arrangement where in some instances we also had to deal with some of the clinicians who will actually bring their own private patients to our public institutions and procure goods and services that are not required by the public sector. So we're dealing with those issues. There has been disciplinary measures against those who have actually exploited the situation.
All right, I'm going to rush through some of these things almost like we're on a speed date because we just want to get the conversation going. Education. You said that parents should register by September.
Yes.
Are we not going to have a repeat of what we saw at the beginning of this year with children not getting places and having to accommodate at the very last minute?
We live in a country of human rights. And we believe that as we promote the right of children to have access to schooling, it must also be the responsibility of the parent to prepare prior to the new year in ensuring that you register your child, you make sure that which school you would want to take your child to. And the September call by the Gauteng government helps us to prepare in terms of learner support material, the demand in terms of learner-teacher ratio, and the allocation and distribution of the necessary support system. But as I've said, Peter, we are a province where in-migration is a reality. We do create that particular space, but ideally, if you go to Tsofimvaba and you know that there's your aunt's daughter that you want to bring here, bring that daughter in October, in September, so that we can deal with that. When they come in January, no one is turned back, but we look at the merits and demerits of why you're coming at the beginning of the year. And it's a problem that we've also started to deal with. This year, we went to some of the schools in the north of Pretoria, and guess what we discovered? There are learners who come to Gauteng, collect learner support material, collect school uniform, and go back to Polokwane, to Limpopo, and go back to Tsofimvaba. I think it is those kind of things that make us to support rural development and the development of our neighboring provinces, because if solutions are not found in those provinces, they actually affect our smooth governance in this province.
The schools themselves are differently abled, aren't they? Township schools, kind of, some would say being left behind actually. And if you compare some of the schools, maybe like even Sandown High just here.
In fact, that's not a fact in this province. The best performing school in the last year was in Orange Farm. You know where Orange Farm is?
Yes.
It's not here. So that was the best performing. That was the best performing school. What has also been quite interesting, your Deep Slot.
Yeah.
Deep Slot has also delivered the best maths and science students in the province. There was only one learner who came from the schools here in Horton and stuff, precisely because we want to invest in these schools in our township so that parents don't vote on their feet.
Right.
And we do not see this situation of our schools in the townships actually ending up being deserted buildings. The last thing that I also want to raise is that we've made a call that education is a societal issue in Gauteng. We focused on Soweto. Soweto is turning around. We're concerned about what is happening in Ekurhuleni. We've made a call to parents. Visit and attend the school governing body meeting at least 4 times a year. Know the teacher of your own child. Make sure that you check whether your child has been to school. And just ask one simple question every day. How was school today? Right. And we believe through those little basic things, they don't require any budget, they don't require anybody to be voted in. And when parents elect others into the SGBs, they must support them. And we know, me and you, that when parents take their kids to the suburbs, they agree with the decisions of the SGBs. Because most of these schools, public schools in the suburbs, are performing and are well kept better because parents there have taken control. But when parents have kids in Kagiso, they believe that it is the government's responsibility. I think it is that we're trying to deal with. We're investing on training SGBs on rights and responsibilities as well.
So, yes, some of the results might be coming through, but science laboratories are not there, soccer pitches are not there. What about facilities? What are we doing about improving those?
Yes. Any of the new schools that have been built in the province have actually become state-of-the-art schools. We will be opening one of the schools before the end of this month in Olive and Old Bosch, and we're working together with our municipalities to say we may not have recreational facilities in all our old schools. Let's invest on the community recreational sites so that then schools can share and so on. Laboratories and so on. Yes, on any new school that we are developing in the province, we invest on everything that makes a school to function. We are now going back, we're putting mobile laboratories in some of our own schools, and whilst one school has not had a laboratory, they're able to interact with their own neighboring school. Because again, as I've said, our resources, the education budget, irrespective of it actually being the largest, goes predominantly towards the salaries of educators. And what we are now dealing with is, are we getting value for money out of that investment?
Transport, e-tolling, is that going to happen? The people don't want it.
I'm looking for the missing for transport. We support the principle of user pay. We do support the principle of user pay. We want to have as many investors as possible. We do believe that we have to move on as South Africans on this particular matter. We are part of the discussions and bilaterals that are championed through the Deputy President. We do believe that before the end of this week, the Deputy President will pronounce. Because what has actually come out, it's that we have forever been talking at cross purpose. And not actually appreciating what the issue is. Where we are now, it's the issue of the fee, the cost structure, and everybody's making a contribution on that.
But the collection of the fee as well, isn't it? I mean, it's with having these huge rigs, wouldn't it be easier, as they're saying, to find other ways to collect that money? Because I think everybody wants to pay.
The user pay principle is going to be applied. The method is what will be announced in the near future, including the way that the cost structure is.
So you're quite willing to risk the wrath of the people, because Kasatu's promised to make this province ungovernable.
You know, governing is not an easy thing. It's easy when you are on the other side. Come inside, and you then come to appreciate the responsibility. And it is in the nature of governance that sometimes you take decisions that may be in the short term seem not to be in the best interest of your people, but in the long term, people will actually appreciate, because nobody is denying the fact that our roads are better now. Nobody is denying the fact that we must pay back the investors, which I think is important. Nobody is denying the fact that we must have the capacity to maintain. The issue is this method that is being introduced the viable one? And I think tolling is not a new phenomenon in South Africa. What we need to do is how we apply the user pay principle. I don't want to be ahead of the Deputy President, but I think we've got goodies.
Right. So it sounds like e-tolling is happening in Namaganja. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we will start going to our tables and also to you at home if you've got questions for the Premier. So join us then. We'll be back in literally a couple of minutes.